And on Sunday, so of course we want to bring Father Paul onto the show to talk about that. Good morning, Father Paul.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina.
Coffee day.
So how are we prepping for the indoor masses this weekend? I was just thinking in my mind, are we doing like disinfecting and maybe measuring off to adhere to social distancing? What kind of prep work is going into the rollout and the resumption of indoor masses?
Well, we're doing all of the above. We've given the pastors flexibility on how to prep their churches, but we made some recommendations. When I say we are talking, I'm talking about the liturgical commission. We made some recommendations to the pastors and perhaps having one entrance so that nobody sneaks in the side door. Perhaps getting one of those infrared thermometers so that we could take people's temperatures. Putting signs with pictures because some people do a lot of people do better with signs and pictures rather than reading directions. Cording off every other pew so that there's that distancing aspect of it. Allowing households to sit together in one pew. When I say households, I mean those people who have been together during this whole time of quarantine.
Right.
But also measuring off 6 feet within the pews itself. So if a household sits together in one pew, then the next one to sit there will be at the 6-foot marker. That's if there is one. So there might not be any room for anybody else. Making sure that the pastors provide ample hand sanitizers at the entrances of the churches. Make sure that there's no water in the holy water font, and also putting some, like the stores do on the floors, marking off the 6 feet distance, so that people can separate themselves as they line up for communion. But the one thing that we also want to make sure that people understand that, we're still in P-Court 2, so the Sunday dispensation is still in effect. So people are a little bit wary or are scared to go out of their houses or even go indoors into the church. They still can attend Mass through live stream, and they can still, if the pastor allows it, if the pastor puts outside speakers or a canopy outside of the church, they can still attend Mass outside.
But it's like a first come, first serve.
Oh, yes, definitely. And we need, one of the things, and I hope the people listening, if you're an usher in your parishes, the ushers will be one of the most important ministries that we will need for this in order for this indoor Mass to be very successful.
Polly, with the pews, right? So if we're sitting in this pew, the pew behind is, it's really a couple of feet away. So how is the layout for social distancing doing? With the
every other pew is going to be blocked off.
Okay.
So if you're sitting in one pew, the person sitting behind you is going to be a pew away from you.
So Polly, in your case, Gigo, how many people can you fit, you think, in the church adhering to all the social distancing measures?
There's a joke. Everybody asks me how many people can we say, well, are you talking about Chamorros or are you talking about Filipinos? It all depends. How many skinny people can you fit? You can fit a lot of people, but it really all depends. So
100 Filipinos and 25 Chamorros.
We need a blessing.
I would say maybe comfortably we can fit probably around 800.
Wow. That's a big church, though, right? Yeah.
It's pretty well. You have to remember that we have side rooms.
Correct.
First floor and second floor, so we have quite a bit of room. But pastors need to also realize that even though there is no more than 50% capacity, pastors need to realize that they're probably going to only fit around 30%, because of the social distancing.
Right. And Polly, is this island wide? Are we looking at every village church having masses, or because I haven't seen the schedule?
That's a good question. We've also allowed the pastors to decide whether they would like to. Can they pull this off? Can they have social distancing in their churches? Some parishes have chosen to postpone the indoor masses until later. so that they can, really prepare their churches for the indoor masses. So not all. To answer your question, not all parishes.
Okay.
But it is open to all, if you can pull it off.
And Paulie, so the governor is now going to allow gatherings of up to 25 people. Is that starting on Monday?
I think everything starts on Friday.
Right. So I'm thinking in my mind that's going to affect the funerals, right? Which have been so tough for so many people. I mean, still 25. I mean, it's a lot better than less than 10. So how are we retooling that to allow for bigger crowds at the funeral while still adhering to all of the social distancing?
Well, as far as churches are concerned, we're adhering to the no more than 50% rule. Because a mass is a mass, whether it's a Sunday mass, whether it's a funeral mass, whether it's a wedding mass.
Right.
So it's inside the church.
Correct.
The pastors have been told to follow the guidelines, and the guidelines right now is no more than 50% capacity. Always knowing that you might not even reach that, because of the social distancing. And again, pastors are reminded that if you're going to have a funeral mass, and the protocol calls for only funeral masses being allowed. There'll be no viewing of the body. The body must be viewed over at the family home or at the funeral home, and then be processed over to the church just for the mass and strictly for the mass. And the wedding,
so that's not going to change.
That's not going to change.
Okay. But what will change is now you could have the funeral mass and you could have 50% capacity in the church.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Which means that, I mean, it's great. People are going to be able to go and give their chinchuli and go and pay their respects and, I mean, at least attend the mass. So
attend the mass. There will, and again, when I say strictly a mass, that means that there will be no eulogy. So you don't process the body over to the church and then have a eulogy. When you process the body to the church, we go, we receive the body at the entrance, and then process in, and then the mass starts. No eulogy, no little, as we call it in liturgy, no little commercials on the side. We just strictly have the mass, and then the final commendation, and then we process over to the cemetery for burial.
What are the faithful saying, Paulie? It's been a very eventful week for the church.
Well, we're all cautiously optimistic. We don't, judging by the parking lot experience, the parking lot masses, we don't really expect the church to even be up to 50% because people are still afraid. The brave ones will come into the church, and again, we advise people who have a persistent cough or have flu-like symptoms to please do not come. If you have any comorbidities such as diabetes, a heart problem, and even the elderly, of course it's their choice to come in, but we suggest that they just don't, because the Sunday dispensation is still in effect. But a lot of them want to receive the Blessed Sacrament, so that's why they would come. And a lot of them miss receiving communion.
You said there are people that are concerned and might keep them away from going to church, but what about like priests? Are any of them concerned? Maybe they're older or may have pre-existing health conditions, or even some of the ushers, altar servers, lectors.
That is also another good question. We have informed the ministers, even including the priests. If you're concerned about your health problem, then we suggest that you don't serve. And so that leaves a lot of our priests are are elderly or they have comorbidities. So it's going to be a challenging time. But most especially with the ministers. A choir is a very important what do you call it? We're still debating over the use of the choir inside the church, because when you sing, you project your voices, and when you project all these air what do you call those?
Aerosolized droplets.
Those droplets will go out, and so if you don't have anything to stop it, you can continue to spread the virus. So it's very important in how how we handle the choir part.
I think they could sing with the mask, Polly. I've been I did a
He's been
couple
practicing.
performances with the mask, and
Yeah.
if they're mic'd up, it'll carry.
Yep. And I think
That's going to be a fugu moment, Polly, when you guys open indoor mass, and then it's like, boom, here comes the choir. Oh my God!
Stay away from the choir.
Now, when that choir starts singing, though, that's when everyone's going to be all goosebumped out, and they'll be like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, over at Chico, we use a choir loft, which doesn't really mean anything, because when you project your voice,
Right.
even though the 6 feet distancing doesn't really count, because when you project your voice, you have that powerful.
Yeah.
Your droplets go out like a cannon, and then down into the people below. So
Correct.
we're going to have to really train music ministers on their PPEs, and they're going to have to project their voices a lot louder
Face shield,
because
Polly.
of the masks. Yeah.
So that's something we're still working on. We might not have the choir on Sunday.
I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe one cantor, and then they need to be far away from the congregation,
Right.
so that they don't blow any droplets out there into the congregation.
All right. What about all the other things that you guys had mitigated because of the risk of the spread of COVID? How are we? Could you go down the line from anointing the sick to all the things that you had either put on hold or?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are those changing with these new easing of restrictions?
Well, the visitations to the sick, to the non-COVID persons, especially to the homes, are allowed, but they need to continually don their masks, put on their PPEs. For baptisms, because there is a special protocol. In the big churches, usually we have like 5 or 6 baptisms at one time. Now we can only allow 1 baptism at a time, only because we are going to be using bottled water for each individual. So they need to be done one at a time inside the church. And of course, the 50% capacity needs to be followed, and all the other mandatory protocols. The weddings is going to be a little bit different. We can still have wedding masses, but the rings will be placed in front of the couple so that the priest doesn't hand the ring or the coins off to the couple. They will pick up the rings themselves, and they will minister their vows to each other by themselves. What other things are there? The one thing that the pastors need to have been delegated to do now by the Archbishop is to confirm their confirmands in their own parishes, and of course they need to make sure that they do it in a very, very cautious way, still adhering to the protocols for mass inside the church. Sometimes if they would like to have a mass in a parking lot, that's up to them. The flexibility is there for them to use. And then First Holy Communion, of course, again, we need to plan that carefully so that the protocols are still followed. So we can do all the sacraments. The only thing that we cannot do, and we met with Guam Memorial Hospital, because Guam Memorial Hospital is the designated COVID hospital in Guam. Mm-hmm. The priest cannot go directly to the emergency room if they're called. The priest cannot go directly into the patient rooms on their own. Everything needs to be done through the nurse in charge, and everything needs to be requested by the family. And as long as the medical team, especially the nurse in charge, gives us the okay to go into the hospital, that would be the only time that we can go in. GRMC has already allowed us to go into the hospital, but again, we also need to be very cautious and make sure we have our PPEs in order to anoint.
Wow.
And to anoint oils, we don't use our hands, our bare hands. We will use cotton swabs to anoint, and then put the cotton with the oil, the sacred oil, in a bag, which is to be burned later on because they're sacred. We don't want to just throw them in a trash can.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, Polly. I'm glad to hear that you guys have worked around all the requirements. Indoor mass. What is the message going to be this Sunday as far as and I don't want you to give away too much because I know you do great homilies, but what message are you going to be bringing to your flock?
Well, this Sunday, so appropriately, is Pentecost Sunday. It's the birthday of the church, and it's such a wonderful homecoming for the church to actually go into the building, because we are, the church is not the building, the people are the church, and it's wonderful that the church will be allowed to go into its own building, and to remind ourselves that when Christ, founded the church here on earth, he said that not even the gates of hell will prevail against this church. So not even COVID-19 will prevail against this church. This church will survive. This is a kingdom that will have no end, and we need to remember that. And whatever happens, whatever challenges that life throws at us, we cannot be defeated by them, but we need to always raise up our eyes to heaven and always know that God is always there, even in the darkness, and that He will guide us. He will lead us to the light. That is the message.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Polly. Anything else you want to add in closing here?
I attended a wonderful ceremony for the graduates for class of 2020 yesterday. It was put on by Alicia Callie and George Guerrero. And I'd just like to make a wonderful congratulations to our class of 2020, that even though in these dark times and this, bittersweet moment in their lives, again, to look up to the heavens and always know that there are so many possibilities out there. Don't let this one experience of not being able to have a quote-unquote normal graduation ceremony let you down, especially those who are graduating from high school. But there are so many possibilities out there. You just need to have faith, and then allow yourself to be open to whatever God plans for you in your life, and take whatever experience that you received and during this time of quarantine, and to look for all the silver linings in it, and allow those silver linings, allow what you have learned outside of the classroom during these quarantine times to move you forward into the future. So congratulations again to the class of 2020.
Viva class of 2020! Viva! Hey, in the immortal words of Michael Jackson, you are not alone. I mean, all over the world, right, Paulie? So there's definitely a lot of company.
We are never alone.
Thank you so much, Father Paul, and I know you're excited for this weekend. So really want to just wish you the best, and
thank you, and thank you so much for having me on the air.
Always, anytime, our pleasure. Okay,
all
Father,
right.
wash your hands.
Get some every time.
Right. 706. Let's keep it on the phones. He's doing good work out there in the community. Want to bring on my buddy Ed Wing.